Alright, so wanted to make a quick video basically talking about and showing an example of my training regimen that I made for myself. I'm sure it exists or other people have done it in the past. You know, the game is very old and I'm sure people have created this type of thing or thought about this type of thing before, but you know, I didn't really have any reference for myself. And when I came back to the game in March, so I noticed that like when I came back into the game in March, I felt like I played very slow and sluggish, and I watched someone like Chamiko, you know, and he's kind of all over the map playing very fast and looking at many things, and I just like I tried to emulate that, right? So just to get into it, basically, you know, this is going to be more gauged towards human players because I'm a human player. Maybe it'll give you an idea on how to create something for yourself in terms of another race, or you know, just kind of share the video with someone who's an undead player, orc player at a higher MMR, and see if they can kind of create an example for that community. And so I don't know, but anyway, point is I picked my human. I started off originally versus computer normal, but I found that microing against them is too easy, so I switched to computer insane. And I have an interval that you'll hear in a sec once I play it that plays every 10 seconds. And so the point of this training is that it's forcing kind of like it's a multitasking training that forces like a kind of a, you know, like stress level on you and all the, you know, a couple different things which I'll get into as we go into it. But so get into the game. I'll let it play for a sec. You'll hear the beep. So wherever, there we go. So yeah, every 10 seconds that timer goes off. I know, you know, it doesn't really matter right now because I'm just starting the you know, starting the game. But point is that I'll skip ahead here so that we can kind of get into it, because I don't want this video to be long at all. But so every 10 seconds, no matter what's happening in the game, I have to come back and look at my main base, and in that time I try my best to use my mouse to click the mini map to come back to my base. I know that you can use the space bar, and that's a good habit to get into as well. But the point of using my mouse in this case is that it's forcing me to look at the mini map a lot more, and so the point is like I gotta look at my base no matter what. If I'm in a skirmish with the computer and I'm microing footmen or whatever, and it forces me to come back and look at my base, and in that time I'm also looking at the mini map, and then I'm also looking at my supply, and it's really like building that habit, right? And I feel like for us at a lower MMR, you know, 1700 below, maybe 1800 below, whatever, that it's a huge weakness of ours is like the macro game, for example, right? So when I come back to the game, I felt very slow, and I watched someone like Chamiko, and he's kind of like just all over the place. You know, I'm going to reference him because I don't watch any other matchups or really, you know, players of other races. You know, all my focus is on human and getting better at human. So the whole time I kind of treat it like it's a real game in terms of the macro. So I still tech, I still make a tier 2 building, I still make a second hero and everything. I just don't use them. My focus is just like practicing footman micro and you know, macroing, right? So every 10 seconds I got to come back to my base. In this case I treated it like it was a human mirror matchup, and I was doing the fast level 3 creep route. And once I get level 3, then I'll go start harassing the computer, right? Similar to a real game. So that's what I'm trying to emulate. And so this training, you know, helps with creep routes, helps with build order, helps with the stress of multitasking while you're skirmishing. Because the whole point is once I get level 3, I kind of want to be harassing the computer nonstop so that I can practice my footman micro. And then at that 10 seconds, even when I'm in a skirmish with my footman, I have to go look back at my base. And I feel like that's a very hard thing for people to do, especially at the lower MMR. So that's why I tried to build this skill. And I think, you know, overall, it's one of the big reasons why I've been able to climb MMR so fast. Compared to a lot of other people, since I've only been back to the game since March. And so on top of like creep route and stuff like that, I felt like, which I don't know if I touched on it earlier in the video, but I felt like I lost a lot of games starting out because I didn't build a farm when I should have, and I supply blocked myself, and I lost a game, or you know, I didn't macro at all in a big battle late game, and I lost the game because I had like 2,000 gold that I didn't spend while I was in a battle or something. You know what I mean? Like these scenarios I felt like happened to me a lot early in the when I got back playing the game, which hurt me a lot. And I tried to create like a thought process on how to fix that and how to become stronger in that aspect of the game. So that's kind of why I came up with this for myself. And so you can see here, the whole point is like I'm just harassing, trying to practice my footman micro and not like lose as few footmen as possible, so that you know, I'm building that micro skill, because you know there's so many aspects to this game on how to be very good player, right? So that's why I'm trying to think of like all these different aspects. So this obviously is more focused on the early game, I would say, rather than, you know, mid or late game. But you know, there's been so many games as well that I lost simply because I had a bad early game. So I feel like this really strengthened my early game in terms of timing, in terms of multitasking, microing, like all these important factors of the game, right? Obviously you still need to play the game and get practice so that you know you can build those skills in a real game. But I do feel like it really skyrocketed me and made me a more consistent player, because ultimately that's kind of what happens, is, or happened to me anyway, is that you get into this plateau where you're stuck in an MMR for, you know, a very long I see it with other players as well, where they're stuck in an MMR for a very long time, and there's, you know, huge holes in their gameplay. And I you know, so this doesn't solve all problems, but I think it solves a lot of problems for the, you know, maybe like 1600 MMR and below. You'll start to win a lot more games. So basically I did this for, you know, every day as a warm-up before I played a game for like 2 weeks, I want to say. And I, you know, personally for me, I felt like it skyrocketed my gameplay a lot, and I started to, you know, do a lot better than people around that 1500, 1600 and low 1700 MMR. And then you know, once I started getting the macro down and the micro down with like unit control, then I started really, you know, spending my time now more focusing on, you know, positioning of battles, when to battle, when to run, like, you know, when not to commit. So like, you know, I can kind of get into the more in-depth parts of the game. But, you know, I created a couple of rules for myself. So one of the other things that I noticed that plateaus players and me as well is that we just mass games, right? So and that's kind of the habit I had from before, when I used to play this game when I was younger and it was very popular. Is like, I didn't necessarily watch too many VODs of myself. I didn't necessarily take a breath after losing games. I would just like keep playing, and you know, I'd lose a game and hop right into the next game and lose another game, and before you know it, you're like 4 or 5 games in the hole because you're having a bad day. So when I came back to the game, I created a rule for myself where if I lose 2 games in a row of ladder, then I would take a breath and I would watch the VOD. You know, and this is kind of a discipline thing of that I had to spend the time to do, is that I would take a breath, watch the VOD of my last loss if I lost 2 games in a row, and then based on what I thought I lost, why I lost, whether, you know, because sometimes it was macro, sometimes it was micro, I felt like I was playing slow, like whatever, you know, kind of sluggish, it happens. And so then I would be like, okay, that's kind of the problem in this case. So then I would hop back in, even though I did this as a warm-up, and I would do this again and practice a different map and a different creep route. And so I just, you know, and I found that overall it made me a much more consistent player, which is another reason why I think I climbed MMR at such a fast pace since I've been back, compared to many other players who have been kind of plateaued for a long time. Because, you know, you get into that case of where if you're just playing multiple games in a row and losing those games, then you know, one day you might lose 4 games, and then the next day you might win 5 games, and you just kind of get into this plateau of where you're just stuck in the same MMR because you don't take the time to improve. So that's how I kind of went about it and tried to stay consistent, especially as a human player, because I feel like there's really no room, or it's very unforgiving, especially in the early game as human. So that was my thought process. You know, I don't know if other people feel the same. Maybe it'll help you, maybe it won't. Like I said, if you play a different race, Orc, Undead, Night Elf, whatever, maybe you can take some ideas from it and adapt it to that race to help you out, or try to get with a higher MMR player, whether you have a coach or a mentor or whatever, and see if they can create something similar to this that you can work on in your own time. But yeah, I kind of made those rules for myself, practice these you know, skills to kind of make it second nature, especially, you know, as a human player with that first footman scout. Super crucial, I've learned, and can make a huge difference in your gameplay, because for example, if I played against a Night Elf player, if you're very good with that first footman scout, you can, like, sometimes they'll do the mass hunts on you, right? And I found early that I was very bad at scouting and very bad at multitasking with the first footman, and I would lose games because I wouldn't see that there's an early Huntress Hall, and I couldn't adapt to it, and before I knew it, there was like 4 hunts in my face and I had nothing to deal with it, you know. So there's all these different scenarios as a human player of practicing and scouting and multitasking, looking at your base, looking at the mini map, looking at your supply. And I feel like as I watch players streams of games from Gym or Fountain of Manor, there's a lot of I see a lot of those problems in those players that I had as well, and I still obviously suffer from them. I'm not anywhere, I don't even consider myself good at all right now, but I think it helped me improve a lot. So hope this is helpful for some people. You know, maybe you can take some stuff from it and use it for yourself or whatever. But yeah, I would just get an interval timer, set it to whatever. For me, I set it for 10 seconds because I felt like it stressed me out a lot because it was very often. And I'd rather, like, you know, in practice like this, where I'm practicing skills, I'd want to push myself to the limit of stress, so that way when I'm in a game, it doesn't seem as hard to do. Because that's the one thing that I found is, like, it was very hard for me to take that second to go back, like when I was in a battle, mid or late game, to go back to my base and build a farm or whatever, you know, make units, whatever it is that you find as your problem. I found it very hard to do those things because I was so tunnel visioned on the fight that I was in the game, right? So hopefully this is helpful. You know, if not, sorry for wasting your time. But, you know, hope it was good, and thanks for your time.